All right. All right. Yeah. I like it. I like the feedback loop. I like you guys too. Chris Courtney here. Just getting started. I'm gonna wait for you old couchbot to fire. Take a look really quick over here at the program at the Discord channel. Um, it's been really fun the last week or so, getting back into reviewing the jobs that are out there on the market. Former colleague of mine was pointing out today how insane it is that it that a beginning position would require 5 years of experience, and I completely agree. There's absolutely no job out there that is truly looking for a beginner that is also looking for 5 years of experience. There are jobs out there that are more reasonable, and I don't I don't begrudge I don't begrudge people who put out there that they need 5 years of experience to apply for their job, to apply for that position. What I will say is that if you see one of those positions out there and you like what the company does, you should just apply for it. Like, just totally disregard the number of years of experience that they say they're looking for. Because what we'll hear over and over again is that, if you talk to the design team, if you talk to the hiring person actually doing the hiring, that's not really a requirement. That's what we hear, right? So why pay any attention to it at all? Why not just apply? So that's my advice to you as you are on the job hunt. Don't even pay any attention to it. Now, if it says it's a senior level role and they're looking for 5 years of experience or 7 years of experience, I think you need to pay some attention to that, because they've labeled it as something that's going to be senior in nature in the job title. And I do think that that's important, because if you're just getting started, I don't expect you to go in there and be Yoda, okay? I expect for you to go in there and learn. I expect the company to have people around you. And that's something else I want to point out. These places that say, hey, we need an entry-level designer, and this is our first UX hire. This is our first UX hire. We need somebody entry-level. No, you don't. You do not need somebody entry-level for your first hire. First of all, I want to applaud you joining the game, hiring a designer, sometimes a UX specific designer, but hiring a designer, okay? That's not for anybody to really react negatively toward a company, but for a company to come in and say, we're hiring our first designer, and that first designer is going to be a beginner, that's illogical. That doesn't make sense. You need somebody who's going to be able to work with you as a partner. And what I find is that a lot of companies who are hiring their first designers, they want somebody to make it look a certain way, and that won't fight back, that won't push for a better solution. That's what they're really looking for. So when you're going in and interviewing for these positions, you need to be asking that question. You need to be going, am I going to be working with a group of people that are really looking to make the product better, or are you just looking for me to decorate it a particular way? Now, that's going to turn off some people, because some people are in fact looking for a decoration person, somebody to hang some drapes. Okay, they're not really looking for a designer to come in and apply critical thinking to how that product works, but they're looking for somebody to come in and paint the room. That's not the type of job that you're interested in. And I would rather you ask that question and get the answer that will guide you out the door, or get the answer that will tell them you're going to be you're going to be difficult to work with, than you getting into that situation and leaving it 3-6 months later because it was a terrible place for a designer to be. So be truthful with yourselves, startups, when you're hiring a designer. Okay? Be upfront about what you're looking for. Some of you are just looking for somebody to paint the room. I get it. Everybody deserves a nice looking website. All right? I'm not begrudging that. But if you are hiring your first designer, realize that you're opening the door to a potentially significantly better product. And if that opportunity is there, if that opportunity is presenting itself to you, I would highly encourage you to take it. All right. That's going to do it for the pre-show because CouchBot has fired. I always love to see the CouchBot. And I appreciate this morning's the morning rant. Morning rant. Sometimes it's really necessary. So let's get this thing underway. Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic. It's time for the feedback loop. It is so good to be back. Check out the pre-show. I might have went off a little bit, but it's job related. It's job related. We're here now, focused on design, and the good news is we've got a couple of things to look at. One, Rebecca, welcome back, Rebecca. Charlie, welcome back, Charlie. Although Charlie's been submitting a lot of stuff. I saw Charlie yesterday. Did want to give a shout out. Katie said, I'm ready to get on the rocket ship. Katie, we're ready to have you in the, Katie, come on. Come back to the feedback loop. All right? You see Katie around in Discord, say, Chris was shouting out at you. All right? But she said yesterday she's ready to climb back on the rocket ship. So let's do that. I'm going to share my screen because I want to go ahead and get this underway. If I could find OBS. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to jump right into Figma. So Rebecca's got a new project. Let me hide the guides here. Rebecca's got a new project, and she's wanting to take a peek at a typographic system that she's applying to this new project, and she's also looking at the usage of color. And I'm really, really happy to see, like, the fact that Rebecca's focusing in on the content, like, rather than like trying to get all the images and all the secondary colors onto the screen. She's pretty much said, okay, this orange thing is going to be the action color, and I'm going to keep everything gray right now so we can just focus in on typography. All right, because the typography, you can look at these 2 pages. The typography is doing a lot of work, right? So let's take a peek in. And one of the things that I like to do that I think is really critical is I prefer to not just kind of zoom in and out like this and try to, like, oh yeah, you know, how does this work on a screen? I like to go into prototype mode. And prototype mode gives us an opportunity to really see what this is going to be like. So let's, yeah, I think that's, there we go. So prototype mode gives us a chance to really see what this is going to be like as a site without the ability to zoom in and zoom out, like, you know, well, I guess I can actually zoom in. I didn't know I could zoom in like that, but I can't zoom out any further. It right sizes it so that you're experiencing what somebody on their machine, on a, you know, like I'm experiencing this as somebody on a laptop right now. That's great. What I will say right away is I think that this main typography is really large. Like, it's really large. It's like museum large. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of websites. When you look at a commerce website and you look at a museum website, the museum website, the type is always like, it's like 80-year-olds are looking at it. Okay, all the typography here is pretty big by comparison. I know one of the sites that you were looking at was Amazon, for instance, and this type here is 18. Amazon, this would be 13. Okay, so when you look at the size difference there, if you're really saying, hey, Amazon is the inspiration for my client, some of that is going to be, okay, well, what is the client looking at for comparative purposes? Okay, is this in that realm? I'm not saying that 13 is the way that you should go. I'm saying that if Amazon is the thing that people are looking at here, 13 is the nav that they're using. So right away, I've got some concerns about typography up here in size. I think it just needs to come down. Same thing here. I think this is just way too large. Now, as I migrate over, I do see it with less text. And the other thing I want to own up to is I know for a fact that this is going to have a background image on it. Okay? And that background image is going to you're going to need to reverse out of it somehow. So I do understand that's why the typography may be larger, but it's still really large by comparison with anything else you're going to run into. So I think that overall, like, everything down by 25%, like just across the board, down by 25%, so that you have an opportunity to like, this is just way too big, way too much content. If you feel like your client is going to have a hard time editing, that's another reason why you want to take it down, because otherwise they're just going to fill up the entire screen. This orange is it doesn't have enough saturation. Well, it has saturation. What am I saying? It doesn't have enough. It doesn't really have enough. I would like it with just a bit more gray, just to darken it up a bit. You could there's a number of ways that you could add that, but I just want it to get a little more burnt if possible. Or I want to flip it to black on the typography. Right now it's kind of in that in between zone. Although I would say that I would check that out with Stark or one of the color accessibility tools before making a final determination on what to do there. But I do think the typography again is pretty big. I mean, this is 18. I think it should be like 13 or 14. This is 24. I think it should be 20. Okay, so it's like everything comes down 20 to 25%. As we come down, I think this is fine. Maybe even a little too small. And I see a lot of things here that are one line and they're really long. I would like to encourage you to think about what happens on narrower measures. Is this going to stack? Is it going to, I wouldn't shrink it. And, I know for certain that you've been on other projects where you know that these columns get encroached on, right? So be thinking about what's going to happen when, what's going to happen to autos and transport or electrical equipment when that icon begins to shrink down in size that's up there above it. Okay, why Supermelon? This is way too big. This is, I think that you've got a label style here. It's trusted by enterprise and Fortune 500 companies. It's almost the same size as that. And I want to come over here and see. I know that you've got some stuff off here to the side. So you've got a 36 here. And a 24. I think those are okay. I might say 60, 30, 24. But when I look at this, I think this coming down a little bit wouldn't kill you. I think this being set in the same size as that would be fine as well. I still think you're going to have enough difference between the two to hold this together, and I think this here is fine. I also noticed that you went all Montserrat, which, um, that's the safe play. Although even as somebody who uses Montserrat, I hate the apostrophes. Just, ugh, I just think they're garbage. Um, and I use it. I use Montserrat. All right, so I have to own myself on that. I suck. Um, looks like we got somebody. Oh, Tariq, welcome in. Tariq's here. Tariq just left a really, really, really nice message on YouTube, complimenting our color usage video. So it's nice to see Tariq signing up, and joining us for the live stream. All right. So again, as we look at this, I do think that, again, typography's too big. We need to come down. This, I either want to take that orange, make it a little darker, or I want to flip it around and get some black onto that, get started, and again, take it down in size. And this is not uncommon. I've done this with my own projects, where and case in point, I've got this project right here called Circuit, and this project is honky big, like just super big. Don't like it. That's at 20. Too big. It's too big. And what I know is that when I came over, let's find my browser real quick. Yeah, it's over here. So when I came over and I designed this in so Netlify, where is Chicago Circuit? Sorry, I had this just open yesterday. Netlify. Well, let's go to sites here. Take you a little sidetrack into Netlify. So I've got this circuit project right here. Let's go view the simplified domain. So what you'll notice is when I come up here and I inspect this, this project, when I actually built it, so this is English, it's at 1.6, which means this is at 16 pixels. Yeah. So I took it, and while I had it over here in Figma, and I'd oversized it in Figma at 20, which is ridiculous, when I actually brought it over here into code, it was 16. All right. So I'm just owning myself. I'm just saying that it's very easy to get into these Figma projects and make them too big, because again, it's because you can do this and you lose track. This is something I first experienced with Illustrator. All right. When I was doing Illustrator years ago, like eons ago, I hate Adobe products. When I was using Illustrator, I would zoom in and zoom out because I was making illustrations with them. And then when I used typography, I would still zoom in and zoom out, and I would lose myself. I would lose like the scope of the project because you're not really seeing the project right now, okay? And it's really easy to fall into this category. And I made styles over here, and this is recent. I mean, I've been designing for 20 years, and I still do screwy stuff like this. That's why I don't jump on you too much. I just go, oh yeah, you made your type too big. Yeah, I get it because I do it. I've done it. I get it. So again, I think a lot of this stuff is pretty nice. Like, a lot of this stuff is right size. Like as we're coming through here, it's fine. Again, this is where that orange needs to. You're using orange as an action color, and I think that's really smart. You're consistently using it. It's got to be darker, though, than that. Otherwise, it's just not going to hold up. The only other way that I could say is if you wanted to come behind it and, instead of the read more with an arrow down, instead of this being like a link, you make it you make it a bit more like a label, or not a label, a button. And Yeah, let's just take a look. Now, see, that's a more saturated orange, and that's not necessarily where I'm looking for it to go. Where I'm actually looking for it to go is to get a little darker like that. And if that happens, like let's come in here. Let's come in here and select this. And let's just copy that darker orange. All right? Do you see how much easier this is to read with just a little more gray in it? It just gets just dark enough. If I compare it, it even looks like it's set in a thicker. Well, I guess it is technically, because once I click it, it got a little easier to read. And this is just a rendering issue that. Okay. Whoa. Hey. Why don't we zoom back in? But when you look at that, it should be really apparent right away that this is easier to read than that, and it's just because it just has more gray in it to make it just a little heavier. I do think that's going to benefit, and but the big thing again is all of this. All this, especially once you get into these buttons and into these larger type displays. Like right now, this is what 36. I think again 30. It's just everything above. Well, all the major labels above 30 need to come down, and then the buttons need to come down, and then the nav at the top needs to come down, and then I think once you do those adjustments, I think you're going to be fine. But right now it's just like these are out of scale. Now I wouldn't worry about your footer. Your footer, like that's 18, that's 16. Maybe. I mean, I just want to change this to 12. And here's the thing about 12 that I think is important. Once you go, like if you said 13, let's say 13, give it some space. All right. So if I said 20, I just want to kind of come in here and begin looking at this. Let's come back over here to look at how much easier this is to read, even at a smaller size, than this is all packed together. All right. Take your typography down in size, then give it air. Okay? Particularly if it's something that you're expecting somebody to click on. Like these are all going to be clickable items. All of these will be clickable items. All of those will be clickable items. This will probably trigger a chat. That'll trigger an email. That'll trigger that'll probably try to call. So I really think smaller plus space. Okay? So, with that said, I think we've sufficiently gone through that. I call myself out on it, Rebecca. I think you're heading in the right direction. It's just that the type's too big. Okay? And again, I've done it. Let's head over and take a peek at Charlie. Hey, Charlie. Coming back to my circuit project. By the way, this has been a really fun project to work on. The good folks over at Data Made, right there, Data Made. They do data visualization, and it really good folks over there. Check them out if you get an opportunity. And there's other media orgs as well: Chicago Reporter, Injustice Watch, Better Government Association. It's been a roller coaster of a project to work on because this is something that they were working on, and then COVID happened, and then George Floyd happened, and only now are we getting back to this very important project on the circuit courts of Cook County. So with that said, let's take a look at Charlie. So Charlie has submitted his design reads project. Couple things, Charlie, I think that are important is I wanted to take a peek. So you've got this design reads the process. I really think that like this discovery label would work pretty well as the process. I don't necessarily think that you need this big blue banner. It's like it's just adding a lot of weight that isn't really necessary. Um, so as we come down, there's a lot of space here, and I think you could go a little wider. Um, the the big thing that I've noticed though, is the space above the label, but below the label. So the space above the label is significant, but the space below the label is it's the I shouldn't call it a label. It's a button, Chris. But this button is being pushed away from the content it's associated with and toward content that it's not associated with, and this creates a odd pairing. So what I want to do really quickly is I want to come in, and I'm not going to pay any attention to this grid stuff. I want to pay attention to these buttons, because if we can fix these buttons, I think that's going to address most of the other issues that are on this screen. Okay, so let's go to the right. Let's pull this in. I didn't recognize. See, they didn't realize I was going to run into that. Also, this appears to be. No, maybe this is just out of order. Or off center. You know what? I can't make any progress now because I got to look at this. Okay, so we've got the container width 90%. Zero auto. This has got some weird spacing. Let's come in here and take a peek at what's going on. Div. Oh, that's weird. That's like an empty div. There's nothing there. Discovery phase. Come on up. Oh, it's in here. Well, that's weird. Why would you... Okay. Why would that not fill? Div 3. It's weird. It's got like some sort of doesn't really fill out. Like I see the grid. I still would just come through in 1FR, 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 even on like a tablet. I think where you're wanting to go down smaller is like when you get into mobile. I think that having this go to 2 on like a tablet, I think it's going to get too big, if anything. But I'm more interested in what's happening with. I want to refresh this because this. Like, why is that giving us this space? Because you've got max width 100% right there. So that's fine. That's what I'm looking for it to do. It's just really weird. That just seems to be. That's just animations with 100%. Is it grid gap? It shouldn't be. And that's just a little padding. That's interesting. It's like this weird little space. I wonder if it's, is there any reason for that? Is there any reason for that div to be there? Is there any reason for that div to be there? Well, yeah, that div means that it's responsive. Like that div is. So you've got this container for DR. You got this grid gap, and the grid gap's fine. That's not causing a problem. There's something else in here. Let's look at the layout. So 82525. Where is that coming from? Because there's like a 5 pixel difference in here, and I'm not sure where it's coming from. It's like that shouldn't be an issue. That's something to look out for, because it becomes more of an issue here. It's like it's stuck, and this is another reason why I probably would just go with the with, it looks like it might be on this section container. There's something hinky about that. And that's not helping because, you know, you're trying to contain the width here, and then this, it's saying display width. No, that's not impacting it. But there's something going on with this weird little div that's wrapping the image. And then if I move it, and this div class, yeah, that's really weird. I don't know. Is there a height on it? Maybe. No, I don't see the height. Okay, well, I'd probably just come in and simplify this down a bit, because there's some structure here that I'm not sure is necessary, like div class 3. I'm not even sure why that would have to be there. Yeah, once I get rid of that div class 3, it's like it doesn't appear to be doing much. And then here, if I said you got a max width of 100 anyway, so why does that not fill out? I don't know why that doesn't fill out. I don't see anything in here. Display grid, yep, fine. Grid columns, 1FR, turn to padding, grid gap. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't work, to be honest with you, but you know, I do know that when we come back here and we, oh, interesting, is like, sorry, I'm just trying to drill down and find it. It's eluding me at the moment, but it is something that I think it doesn't show up here, and I think that's why I like the 4 over the 2, because there's just something about the way this is coded. It might just be too many divs over here in this actual section, because really you don't need the 4D. I mean, you've got the container, this is your grid, you don't need these other divs. All you need is the 4 images in the divs, and 4 images in that grid container, and then if you needed to hide something later, you could just apply a class to it. So something to consider. But I said that what I was really here to do was to focus on the labels. So for my own sanity, because I like remaining sane, I'm just going to change this to 1FR. Okay, so there. All right, I fixed it. I fixed it for me at least. Let's take a look at this label, because this label is the thing that we said an hour ago that we're going to look at. Okay, so you've got this div class center. This is container. Now my question is it being pushed down? It doesn't appear to be. Okay, so center. It's on the button. Okay, so the button right now has. Oh, yeah, it's up here. Okay. Margin top forum. Okay. Padding. The padding's fine. It's the margin that's the issue. I really think that the easiest way to solve this issue is to say margin, and if you want to say 1 rem and 0, that's fine. that at least gets equal spacing on both sides of it. And now when we look at it, it's no longer this thing that's being pushed too far down. If you want it to say 2 rim, if you want to say, yeah, I want it further down, Chris, that's fine. The goal here is that it's not being pushed closer to the following element than it is to the element it's supposed to be associated with. Yes, I would like for this to be wider. I would like for this content to come over here. I'm not necessarily certain why that Goodreads is so far above this, and we can come in and take a peek. Let's put this to the bottom. And now let's come in and inspect. Okay, so that's Goodreads, it's image class, that's a div, that's centered. Okay, so there's got to be something on this container element here on the section label. Section label, there it be. So section label's being pushed down. You've got some sort of padding top, and now it aligns. Okay, so and that's my suspicion is all along the way here. We've got little bits of padding top on something like that, where if we really wanted that thing to happen, I've taken it away from the section label. I'd put it on the container. I'd say, hey, you know what? I want my container to have margin, and we'll say 1 rim, 0. And I have let me guess. You've got 0, or you've got 0 auto. Yep. Okay. So here, you can't do margin 0 because actually you could do margin 1 rim auto. Okay. So that gives you a margin of 1 rim to the top and bottom. If you want to say I want it to be 3 rim, you could. Okay, and that gives you control over the space above and below, while allowing you to still keep your button relatively close. So this is a way to get away from having the individual padding on an element and put it on the section, and that's really what I would encourage you to do here. Forget about putting a lot of weight and padding on section label, for instance, particularly if it's trying to push away from other things. Now, if you're wanting to put some padding on it from something that's following it, or margin on it from something that's following it in the same grid, that's fine. But when it comes, I like to keep everything on at the section level. Like here, section 3 rim. What that's doing is it's pushing it, here I'm pushing it further and further away from discovery, all right? But I'm also pushing it further and further away from the following section, right? If you want it to say, oh, well, I just need this to the top, I don't need it to the bottom, well, this would be 0 auto, okay? And now we've, now we don't have that margin to the bottom. We have that margin only to the top, although it looks like the margin's still to the... No, it's not. Oh, I get it, because it's the margin to the top here, and then it's also the margin to the top here, and then it's also the margin to the top here, and you get the idea. So so that's how I would encourage you to handle it, is get some of the spacing out of these individual elements. Try to do equal spacing around the button. Use the section for spacing, and let's continue on down here. User persona goals. Yeah, this is a perfect example. If perfect example of that button just being too close, and this is again where I would make the change on whatever this button style is that you're using. Like you've got this container 60, and this container 60 it's kind of weird because you've utilized it on just the button. and I wouldn't encourage you to do that, because now that weird spacing is only being applied to the button. I think what we could do here is you just that's interesting. So I see what's going on here. So this container 60 is used here, but then you go to another container. Okay. So here's the thing. If this is container 60, and let's get down here to personas. All right, this is container 60, and this is a div, and there's a div inside of it, and you got this information here. I really think Megan Wade here isn't a container 60 so much as she is just inside of this one. Okay, and now I don't have that weird spacing between. She's just inside of the other one. So Megan Wade is not, there's not this separate container 60 here. Let's come on down. So now we've got, let's see, what is this information? Class, Google Drive, view. Okay, so this is the button. So the button is down here. So if I came down here and said, okay, well, instead of, I'm just going to grab this and drag it up. And now, instead of having these two container 60s, I could delete both of these, and it's not going to make a damn bit of difference. Now obviously this is container 80, all right? So you've got a wider measure here, which means that margin top thing is not being applied because that was only to that container 60. So you would want to write your media queries to where, whatever, if that was 5 rem auto 0 auto, that just takes effect wherever. So now that spacing's the same. But I really do think that this is more what you're looking for from a spacing perspective. And you want, right now the problem here is that this style that we applied locally is not being applied there. So there's some streamlining that needs to happen. But if we look at this, let's actually nope, I don't want to do a screenshot. Excuse me. Let's inspect this element. Let's go. So this is 50. I'm not sure why 50 would be necessary. 70 would be fine. But if we look at this and we look at the spacing, and let's go ahead and make this spacing the same. So let's just do what we've done on competitive analysis. And again, my hope would be you would just pick this up and apply it, just like go into this button DR prototype style and apply this to this adjustment that we've made to that. I think it's to, where's the button that you've got here? Is that it? Yeah, that's it basically. So margin to rem 0. Okay, so now we've got that same style applied. Let's take a look at this by comparison to where you were just a second ago. So I'm going to paste it in here. Okay, so here's where we were just a second ago. Here's where we are now. Now those are, it seems like, hey, that's, Chris, is that a big adjustment? Well, not really, but look at the spacing here. Like, the alignment is off here. This button is closer to user research versus the alignment is on. Well, it's not perfect. That's for certain. But it's closer. So what else can we do here? Well, we could come in and just adjust this. This is a column, and we could just say, okay, margin top 1 rem. if we want it to, or 0.5 rem. I'm not sure how far off it is, but you know, there is some hand adjustment that I think is going to be necessary with all portfolios. Probably 1 rem rather than 0.5. Let's see here. Yeah, it's up here. Probably right there. Now, if you look at it versus where it was, again, this is a lot of space here. I still think that, you know, let's come up here and let's make this adjustment really fast. So I'm going to inspect element. I'm going to the dark blue sticky. Sorry, dark blue, getting rid of you. Oh, nope, that's, never mind. That wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Let's get rid of the background color. Oh, wow. That did not get rid of the background color. That did, though. Now let's come over here. Let's give this, you know, well, so that's design reads. Let's do the process as well. You know, this versus that. Okay? It's fussy. It's not fussy. Now there's some spacing up here. I think that's coming in from that 60 that you had. And again, we began adjusting that down here. But again, as you come down, I do think that there's a lot to like here about the spacing. And keep in mind that the way that we went about doing it, we put all the focus in on the section, right? We did allow the button to do its thing. Okay, so the button's pushing down equally. But when we look at this and inspect element on the section, that container, the container like is saying I got space to the top, and that competitive analysis, that button, is just acting independently. All right, and it's going to act independently in each section where it exists. Also, when we come down here to look at the persona, the simplified persona is working better than the other. And, you know, part of that is the spacing on the button. Part of that is when you go to make these adjustments, the problem with the section adjustment, level adjustment we made here was this persona had too many of those sections within it. Okay, so some of that is a coding solution. So I would say clean those things up. Also simplify this grid here to where when we come down in size, and I'll go to the right. When we come down in size, it's not doing that. Okay, because it's not aligning A and B. You don't really need it in 2 columns until you get down here. Okay, until you get on a phone, and then you're fine. All right. Okay, folks. I believe. Oh, hey, Tariq. Yeah, no problem. And glad to have you along. That's gonna do it for us today. We've taken a look at a few different projects. Got some new bodies in the room. Saw Abby come in. Lena also came in yesterday. Lena is my former boss from, like, gosh, man, me and Lena, we worked together at the Chicago Cubs. I actually got to work at Wrigley Field for like 2 seasons working on their magazine. That's something that they printed. Anyway, but Lena was running that department, and it's great to see. It's great to see some of the faces that I haven't seen in a long time. One of my old bosses from around that same period is currently in the program. I'm mentoring her on presentation design. So, you know, it makes me feel good that I haven't completely burned all the bridges in my career, that some of the folks from the past would come back and say hello. But without further ado, I'm going to let you get on with the rest of your day. I'm Chris Courtney. This has been the Feedback Loop, and I hope to see all of you